Hello, welcome back to Tabletop Modern Miniatures. Today we are going to play our very first game of Haywire. We're going to go with a really super simple setup just to get the game mechanics kind of learned and going. So if we just have a quick look at the setup of the board. So we've got our US Tier 1 forces. So we've got a support. We've got 3 assault class and 1 team leader. In terms of terrain, we've got a couple of rocky outcrops. Now, just for the purposes of this game, these rocky outcrops and this, what is to represent some sort of crop in a field, both of these block line of sight. So these are going to obviously be a lot taller than what they are. If the model's behind it, one's over here, they cannot see through it. We've got ourselves a couple of buildings, just a sort of a generic street type layout, and then we've got our, we're going to use these guys as our threat tokens. They're just cheap little plastic soldiers from a toy shop. And we've got our marker set, we've got our operation, which we'll read in a second, fog of war deck to see how that plays. We've got our threat levels, reinforcements, got our tier 1 cards, and we've got our insurgent cards as well. So that's the makeup of the board. The operation that we're going to be running today is Northwind, Operation Northwind, and the briefing is our goal in this mission is simple. We need to clear this district of any OP4 presence. This will help the local force in getting a foothold there. Setup. For this mission, the OP4 can only call 3 teams as reinforcement. All OP4 must be killed for the mission to be a success. So I've gone with this one as it's pretty simple, as you can see, just to try and get some game mechanics down, and yeah, it's something we can build from. So I think that's everything. I think that's everything set up. I'll have a very quick flick through the rulebook again just to refresh my memory on a couple of little bits, and then we'll get into it. Okay, so start turn 1. I don't believe we roll a fog of war card at the start of turn 1, so we're going to go straight into the player phase. We're going to look to move these guys. So each model here has 2 action points to use in their move. So I'm going to do move actions for all models and get them probably moving in towards the centre of this town. So we'll start off by moving the support. He's going to move. In fact, we'll move him sort of to there, and then to here. And these guys are just going to follow up. So we'll be just behind him. So that's 1 action point, and then I'll look at doing the 2nd action point just to move them all over here, and I think that's just going to take us straight into the end of the player phase, and then we'll move on to the OP4 phase, so we'll come back and do that in a second. Okay, so that's where we've ended up with the tier 1 unit on the player phase. So we're now going to move on to the OP4 phase. As the board is currently on alert, we're going to move the threat tokens. To do that, we're going to use a scatter dice and just a general, standard d6. With the scatter, if this icon lands, that replaces any number on the dice. So essentially, that is a facing direction only. If we get an arrow, then the threat token or the models will move in that direction for that many inches, up to 6. And then things change a bit when the board becomes alert, and these guys start doing slightly different things. And obviously once we get a line of sight on them, we know whether there is actually something there or not. So this is the position that we've got at the minute. We've got 1 here in the camp, 1 on this building, 1 outside that, 1 up the top, 1 in the alleyway, and 1 round the back here. So I'll do some moving, and we'll have a quick look and see what that looks like once I'm done. Okay, so this guy here is moved from the centre just out. This one's moved from the front of this building in this direction. This one has turned to face the back of the building here. He's done a turn and face. The chap that was stood out here has gone inside this door here and into the building, and this one's moved just towards the back of the building here. So that is the end of the Op 4 phase. We go into the spawn phase, but that really is only relevant, to my understanding, when we've got an alert board, and at the end in the spawn phase we roll on the current threat level to see if anyone turns up, and that's to represent any sort of nearby fighters that might be off the table but in the area that have heard any sort of commotion. So we are going to move back into the player phase. So that's the end of turn 1. I'm going to move, because I'm useless at remembering what we're doing. So we're now going to try the Fog of War card. Now I'm not necessarily going to use every single card that comes up here, but I just want to see how it might change the kind of game mechanic if it works. If you don't know the way it works, it starts off on a 6. I roll the dice. If it lands on a 6, we take a card. If it doesn't land on a 6, for the next time that we have to roll, it drops down to a 5. And so on until you roll that number. So if on the next turn I roll a 5, I pull the card, it then resets to a 6. So we keep going down. The likelihood each turn is that we're more likely to pull a card, and so on. So we'll roll and see what we get. That's a 1. So we're going to reset that back to a 5 for the end of, or the start of turn 3. So player phase, I'm considering splitting my force. I might take the support guy and an assault class and push them left, and then the 2 assaults and the team leader I might push right and see if we can see this threat token down here. That's the plan. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to probably end up using both action points to do that. Just considering that this guy may well get line of sight, so it might be that I don't push the 2 left all the way around yet. But yeah, I'll do that, and then we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so that's the player phase done. I've used 2 action points each for this group here, which has put him in a line of sight for this threat token just down here. And I've used 1 action point to get these guys up to the wall, and I've left them in Overwatch because I don't want to push them round and get a contact on the one that's around the corner just yet. So we'll see what happens with that one in the Op 4 phase. So now that this one's got line of sight of that threat token, we need to roll to see if there is actually in fact anything there. So we're going to take a d20, give it a roll and see what that is. So it's landed on 13. So consulting the threat level deck for 13. And in fact, I'm going to change it because we should be on level 2 really, because it's done per turn. So a 13 is a fighter and a foreign advisor. Now, I don't have a foreign advisor because my collection is still kind of limited. So the rules basically say if you don't have one of the special type, just replace it with a fighter. So that's going to be 2 fighters. So I'll place them on the table in the place of this guy here. And then we'll move on to the Op 4 phase. Okay, so here are our 2 fighters, Op 4 phase. So the way that works now that we've got 2 identified is they move first. The board's still on alert, so they move first, then we move on to the threat tokens and do them. So we'll see what we get for these guys. And I've just dropped the dice there. See what we get for these guys and get them moved. Okay, so they are going to move in this direction for 1 inch. So I'll get them moved, I'll do the threat tokens, and then we'll just have a quick update and see how we've landed. Okay, so Op 4 phase threat tokens. This one's moved out of the camp here. He's turned to face away. This one's come back out of the building. This one's moved along the building line, and that one has carried on in the same direction for 1 inch. So the spawn phase, again, that to my understanding works on an alert board. We're still in the unalert phase. So we are, I think, anyway, I'll double check that in the rules, but I think that's going to take us onto turn 3 and back onto the player phase, but I'll double check that before we move on. Yeah, so as I stated, the spawn phase is solely for when we've got an alert board, which we don't have at the minute. So I'm going to continue back onto the player phase. So that's going to take us now on to turn 3. We're going to do the Fog of War deck to see how that works. So we need to 5 or more, which we don't have. We've got a 2, so we're going to reset that down to now on a 4. And we're going to move our guys. I'm going to leave these guys potentially as they are. In fact, no, do you know what? Let's see what happens. We're going to move these guys around the corner and get sight of this threat token and see what happens. So I'll move them first. And then we'll make a decision about what we're going to do. Okay, so I've spent an action point for each person apart from this one here. These guys have moved up so that they can all get a view on this one and that threat token up there. These guys have moved from their point here round the corner to get a view on this threat token there. So first things first, we are going to roll to see if this is anything. A 5, so we should be threat level 3, I think. So a 5 is a civilian. I don't have any civilians, so we're just going to take that away. Now we need, so we've got sight on this guy up here, so we're going to roll to see if that is anything. A 3. A 1 to 3 is nothing, so he's going to get removed. Have we got line of sight on anything else? I think there's definitely, yeah, so the guy at the end, we can just see at the back there, he's got a line of sight on this one here. So we'll give that a roll. That's an 11. An 11 is 1 fighter and 1 sniper. So I have that, I'll replace that one in a second. I don't think there's any more line of sight anywhere else. So I'll get this guy changed out and then we'll make a decision about what we're going to do with our remaining action points. Okay, so we've got our fighter and our sniper. Now, as I said, I've used an action point from everyone, apart from this guy who's still got 2. So we are going to use remaining action points to do combat actions now and see how we get on with having engagement with these guys. So in terms of the combat stat we're going to use the easy combat stat because they're in the open and they don't have any body armour. Due to the range and the weapons that these guys have got, we'll only be rolling 1d20 to see if we hit. If it was under 6 inches with their type of weapon, then it would be 2d20. So yeah, 1d20. We'll start off with this guy who's got a single action point. He will need, so he is an assault class, he will need the easy combat stat, which is a 5+ to gain a hit. That's 17, so definitely that hits. He is now dead. We'll now use our team leader, who again has 5+ to target the other guy. That's a 14. He is also down. So we've got 2 enemy soldiers down there. I reckon we are now going to move to this chap at the end. So that is, let's see who that is then. That is our support. So checking the rules for the support, an LMG he has, it's going to be, no matter the range, it's always going to be 2d20. So, and each dice inflicts 2 suppression points. So I will have to see what that does in a second. However, 2d20 for using 1 action point, we'll do it for this guy here. So, and again, we'll be using the easy combat stat because they're in the open and they don't wear body armor. So that is, again, a 5+. So we've got a 19 and a 10, so that's definitely a hit. So we're going to take him out. And because these guys are in a group, I'm going to suggest that there's some form of suppression on him, surely. So I will consult the rules and see what happens to him. Just prior to that, I think I'm going to use 2 action points or an action point and maybe an overwatch. That's what I'm going to do, an action point to move him up to here and then put him in overwatch in case any of these threat tokens move out. Okay, after just a very quick clarification of the rules, suppression would appear to work per model, not a group of models. So because he was hit, suppression doesn't really apply. If I'd rolled and didn't hit him, then he'd suffer suppression points there. So because he was hit and killed, suppression is not applicable to this guy. In terms of so these guys don't have suppressed weapons. So once shots have been fired, and especially the support guy with the LMG, once shots are fired, the entire board becomes alert. So that changes the random movement of models. So any detected models will follow what their card says to do. Threat tokens will now stop moving in a random direction, and they will move their 6 inches towards the player's models. So we'll see how that goes in a second. So the intention is now, remembering that this guy is in Overwatch, we shall see what the enemy phase brings, or the Op 4 phase. So I'll do a little bit of moving quickly. In fact, no, we need to start with this guy, don't we? Because we know that he is there. So let's refer to his card. So the sniper. On the left here it tells us stats, skills and equipment, and on the right it tells us alerted behaviour. So is there an enemy in line of sight? Well, currently no, because he's facing the other way. So it says proceed to step 2. Is the sniper facing a direction where enemies are present? No. Use 1 action point to move up to 6 inches towards the closest enemy while staying on that high point, and proceed back to step 1. Stop the movement when an enemy player or an enemy enters line of sight. So one thing I forgot about, that's just reminded me, one thing I forgot about spawning snipers in is I think they need to go to the closest bit of high ground. So perhaps in reality what I should have done is spawned him maybe up the top here or up the top there, depending on exactly where he was. And then that would have left a single fighter there, because naturally snipers want to have the best view, don't they? So given that, then it says use 1 action point to move 6 inches toward the closest target. Stop the movement when an enemy enters line of sight. Well, he's going to turn and just slightly move, and he's going to get line of sight of this guy anyway, so he's actually not going to move any further than that. So the flow chart basically says proceed back to step 1. Is there an enemy in line of sight? Yes, there is. He doesn't have 2 action points because he has used 1 to move. Use 1 action point to do 1 combat action at the closest target, which is going to be this dude here. So I'll just consult the weapon sheet and we'll do a combat action. Okay, so just having a quick look at this then. He's got sniper. Because it's over 6 inches and to his max range, he gets to roll 2 d20. It does say 2 suppression points, so that's relevant for him. To note, when a model receives 3 suppression points, they lose 1 action point. If they get 6, then they lose both action points, and they are pinned. They cannot move for the next turn. So he is behind cover, and he has body armour on. So we're going to use the sniper's hard combat stat as a result of that, 16 plus. However, he gets 2 d20. Both at 14, so he misses. However, he does get 2 suppression points, which I don't think I have tokens for at the minute. So we shall put a d6 next to him because he has 2 suppression points. That's him done. So right, we just need to move these threat tokens now. So I'll move those, see what happens in terms of them coming into line of sight, and then we'll look to roll to see what they are. Okay, so this guy's moved up from the back here, and this one's moved around the corner. So the way that this works is if these guys move, and within their 6-inch movement towards the player's models, if they gain line of sight of one of them, you do a detection roll to see if there's actually anything there. But if there is, Interestingly, the whatever spawns there actually gets to then use their 2 action points as well. So they've gained an additional 6 inches worth of movement, plus the potential to use 2 action points as well. So firstly, as this one's closest, we're going to roll to see if there's anything there. I think, to be honest with you, I can't really remember what what term we're on now, but 16 is a 16. That's always going to be something. That's 3 fighters, so that's quite a big group. So I'll put that one there, and then we're going to roll for this one here. A 1, so that's going to be nothing again. But you know what? Let's make things a bit more interesting, and let's spawn in a fighter, a single fighter rather than nothing, just to give us a little bit more to do. So I'm going to add those in. In fact, that can be we want a cell leader, so he can be the cell leader. That's what we'll do. So we'll do that, and then we'll move on to the spawn phase, because that's now in effect, because the board is alerted, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we've got our enemy leader and we've got our set of 3 here. Now, if we remember, I put this guy in Overwatch, which basically says in the enemy movement phase, when an enemy model gets into line of sight of that overwatching soldier, they can make a combat action in the enemy phase. So let's put that into effect now. So he's going to aim at this group here, take the Overwatch away. He's going to have 1 D20 because it's over 6 inches, and they're in the open. They're not really afforded any cover there, and they don't have body armor on. So it's going to be on, who is he? He's an assault class of 5+, and that is a 6. So he's going to get the closest one, probably this one. He's going to go down. Good stuff. Great, so everyone's moved. These guys need to do their combat actions probably against him, as he's the closest. So let's just refer to the fighter stats. So is there an enemy in line of sight? Yes. Proceed step 2. Yes. Is the fighter in cover? Yeah, he is actually. In fact, no, sorry, the fighters aren't in cover, they're in the open. So we'll try and get them in cover. So it says no, and they have 2 action points left. Use 1 to move to the closest cover, which keeps a line of sight of the enemy, and use a second action point to do a combat action at the closest target. So I'll get them moved quickly, and then we'll look and see what the combat action looks like. Okay, so I've moved these guys into a bit of cover, and I've also used the cell leader. The cell leader into some cover, because that is what his kind of flow chart on his card says. So we've each got a combat action to do for each of these things. And unfortunately, this guy, as he's the closest, he's going to take the brunt of everything. So let's see what happens to him. They've all got AKs, so it's all going to be 1 D20 because it's over 6 inches. So I'm going to start with this guy here. That's a 1. Sorry, just for clarity, he's body armor and behind cover, so the fighters need an 18+, and the cell leader needs a 16+. So that is a miss. I don't think this gives any suppression. No, it doesn't actually. So that is a miss. We said the cell leader needs a 16+, so for him, a 2. No, so they are all misses. And that wraps up the enemy player phase. So because the board's now alerted, we need to do a spawn phase roll, and that is basically a D20, and we reference the threat level card to see if anything turns up. 7. So 7 puts us as 2 fighters, and we'll say that they enter the board from here. Yeah. Okay, 2 fighters. I'll put them on, and then we'll move on to the start of. We'll call it turn 4. Okay, so we've got our 2 fighters that have just spawned, and that's going to end the end of turn 3. So we move on to turn 4. We've got a Fog of War deck on a 4, so we'll go for a roll there. And we've got a 5, so that's above what we need to get for it. So as I mentioned at the start of the game, we'll see what happens with this, just to see how it could affect the game. I'm not necessarily going to use the card. So this one says, a friendly technical. A group of local force fighters joins your fight in a vehicle. Place 2 local fighters in a technical equipped with a heavy machine gun on a random table edge under your control. So, interestingly, the cards do come with a cutout for a technical, and the potential for you to put models and stuff on that to represent it on the board. I don't have any physical technicals to use. So I'm not going to use it because I just want to still play with the basic mechanics and not add too much in. But that could be a really good extra bit of firepower with a large weapon on the top, which may well change the tide of the battle. But so yeah, I'm not going to use it as I've previously mentioned. But it is interesting just to actually play it with the mechanics of the game. So I'll just have a quick think about what I'm going to do in the player phase, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so to start with, we're going to look at using these guys to move them a little bit closer. So in a move action, you can basically climb anything up to 2 inches in height. That doesn't require a special action. So he's just going to move. That's going to take an inch off of the movement. So he can move a total of 5 inches, which basically puts him in the middle there, and he's going to do the same just behind him. Now, so that's 1 combat action each for those 2. I'm going to move the rest as well. So we'll move him up to the top here, and the same with this guy. There we go. So everyone apart from this guy here has used 1 action point to do a move action. So I'm going to now move into the second action point for each one, and start off with this guy, and we'll just use 2. So he's going to use 1 action point to shoot at this guy. He's over 6 inches, so it is 1 D20, but because that fighter is in cover, he's going to need a 9+ to hit. It's an 8, so it's a miss. There's no suppression points, so he's going to use his second action point to go for the same one again. And that's a 10. We said he needed a 9, so he is down. Great. This guy behind is going to do exactly the same thing. He's an assault, so he again needs a 9+ on this guy. He's got a 6, so that's a miss. And we're going to do the same with our team leader, which again is on a 9. A 2. Wow. Okay, so that's these guys done. We're going to use our support with the SMG to take some shots at this sniper here, because I think he's could potentially be quite a devastating, have a devastating effect on, especially this guy as he's closest. So that's going to be 2 D20, because that is the weapon profile rule for him, no matter what the range. He's out in the open, doesn't wear body armour, so support needs it's an easy combat stat, so that's a 5+, so we've got a 10 and a 6, so he is down. That was his 1 combat action point, and then this guy at the back is going to use his combat action point, an action point to do a combat action at the cell leader, so that's 1 D20. He's in cover, doesn't wear body armour, he's an assault class, so he needs a 9+. 11. Boom, he's hit. So the significance of the cell leader is that he cannot call reinforcements, which is one of his kind of special skills, I think. So that is good. That doesn't stop the reinforcements from coming though. So we've still got these 2 guys here, we've still got this dude here, so we'll move on to the Op4 phase. Okay, so moving on to the Op4 phase then, this guy here is going to be activated. So I'm going to argue that he is kind of somewhat in cover from the majority of models. He's afforded a bit, his base is kind of covered by the wall, so we'll say that he is in cover. So the fighter Is there an enemy in line of sight? Yes. Proceed to step 2. Is the fighter in cover? So we've said yes, and the fighter has 2 action points left. Use 2 action points to do 2 combat actions at the closest target, which again is going to be this guy. With suppression points, I forgot to mention that they get removed at the end of the turn they were dealt, or sorry, the following turn. So we've done enough for them to be removed from that shot that he was shot at by the sniper, wasn't he? So he got some suppression points for that. So he no longer suffers from any suppression points, and he has his 2 combat actions left. So due to the range, over 6 inches, it's 1d20 per shot. He's got 2 shots to take against him, so we'll just roll them both at the same time. And I forgot to mention, because he's in cover with body armour, he needs to roll an 18 plus on the hard combat stat. So we've got a 14 and a 15, so both of those miss. These guys next, so both fighters again. Is there an enemy of line of sight? Yes. Go to step 2. They are not in cover, so they've got 2 action points. You use 1 action point to move to the closest cover, which keeps line of sight, and then do a combat action against the closest target, which this guy's really suffering today. So we're going to use 1 to move towards the closest cover, because there is no cover. And then they're both going to use, in fact, yeah, he remains in line of sight. They're both going to use combat action. So we'll start with this one. It's 1d20. In fact, we'll do both at the same time at him. 1d20 because it's over 6. So we'll roll 1 for each. And it's using the hard combat stat again because he is in cover with body armour. So they need an 18 plus for a hit. So one of those has hit, which means that he has suffered 1 wound. Much like suppression, when they get 3 points per suppression, they get 1 action point. So now that he's wounded, he gets 1 action point until the end of the game, basically. The only caveat to that would be is if we had a medic on our team that could heal him fully and restore both of his action points. So as it stands now, he has got 1 action point till the end of the game. So that ends the enemy phase. We go into the spawn phase. So that again is on the current threat level deck, which should be a 4 now. So we'll roll a d20 to see if we get anything. That's a 7. And a 7 is 1 fighter and 1 true believer. So I don't have true believer, so we'll get 2 fighters, and I might start them maybe back behind this building or something from a different location. So I'll get that sorted, and then we'll move into turn 5. Okay, so these are the guys just here. So now to turn 5, and we start off with the Fog of War. We did draw 1, so that's reset to a 6. That's a 2, so that's nothing from that, and into the player phase. So I'm going to use immediately this guy's 1 action point to take a shot at this guy. So he's in cover, he needs the medium combat stat, and he's an assault class, so that's a 9. 17, good. So he's down, we can take him off the table, and he's going to remain where he is. I'm going to use this guy to kind of just climb over here. That's an inch, so he's got a further 5 inches of movement, which is going to place him around here. I'll move that token. He's going to move up to the corner of this wall with a combat action, with a movement action, remaining in cover. And then I'm going to move, I think, because now he's in the way, I'm going to start to move these guys across here. Maybe even with... No, we'll just move them. We'll move them out in the open and see what happens. It's part of the fun, I guess, isn't it? So that's an action point, action point, action point. He's already used his, so we've got 4 models to do rolls now, combat actions. So we're going to start with this guy here. He's going to go against these. These are out in the open, no body armour. He's assault class, so he needs a 5+ to score a hit. It's a 16, so we've got 1 down. Good stuff. We're now going to use the team leader. He is on a 5+ again. For this guy, he's out in the open behind no cover. So that's a 2, so he's missed. We'll use the LMG gunner, so that was 2d20 no matter the range, and I actually read that they get 2 per combat action. They get 2 shots, so we'll roll for the first shot, and again that was going to be an easy combat stat of 5, so both of the d20 would suggest a hit, so that's great. So they've used theirs, he's used his single, he's used his, he's got 1 left. So as there's nobody to shoot at the minute, because these guys are still behind cover, I'm going to use his second combat action point to just move up a bit further. So that is the end of the player phase. We go back to we move on to the Op 4 phase. So these guys are 2 fighters. Is an enemy in line of sight? No, there is not. Is a fighter in cover? Is the enemy in line of sight? No, and the fighter has 2 action points. Use 1 action point to move up to 6 inches towards the closest enemy and proceed back to step 1. Stop movement when an enemy enters line of sight. So let's move these guys 6 inches, which will put them in line of sight of an enemy. So that's going to take them up to the building line here. So we'll put them both in cover. So it says proceed back to stop movement, proceed back to step 1. Is there an enemy in line of sight? Yes, go to step 2. You've got 1 action point left because we've used 1 to move. Use 1 action point, do a combat action at closest target. So he is the closest target. And they both got AKs. It's over 6 inches, so it's 1d20 per shot. There's 2 of them, so we'll just roll 2 at a time to cover both their single shots at this guy here. Just to recap, he's body armour and in cover, so it's a hard combat stat of 18+. We've got a 14 and a 6, and the weapon itself doesn't inflict any suppression points, so that is a miss. That is the end of the Op 4 phase. We go into the Spawn phase, so we shall roll to see. Oh dear, a 19. A 19 is going to be 3 fighters and a cell leader. Well, we've already killed the cell leader, so it's going to be 3 fighters. So in that case, I'm going to spawn these guys just over here, and then we'll move on to turn 6, I think. Okay, so there's our 3 fighters. They do have line of sight in this guy, but that's where they've spawned. So the start of turn, let's move the dice so I remember. 6, fog of war card on a 5+. It's a 2, so that's going to reset to 4. Player phase. So we've got a few things that we can do here. Let's get this guy out of the open. So 1 combat action point is going to bring him up to just in front of him. He's going to use a 2nd combat action point to enter the stairs. So he's going to be just there. He's going to use 1 of his combat action points to level him, and then he's going to go up the top of the stairs. Like so. So those 2 are done. This guy's going to use both of his combat action points to fire at these guys. In fact, so the assault class, 40 mic, when using a grenade launcher, cover is ignored when doing the combat roll. So he's going to give this a go. So I'm just going to consult the rules very quickly about grenade launcher and see how we can use that in the game. Okay, so he's going to use his skill of 40 mic, which is a grenade launcher. His card says he's a quick fit, although model hasn't actually got it, but we'll just say that it is for testing out the game mechanics. So the cheat sheet says grenade launcher, minimum range of 6 inches, 1d20, and it uses the frag 1.5 rule, which we'll go on to in a second. Looking at the skills, it does say cover is ignored when doing the combat roll, so that would suggest that we use an easy stat now because they don't have body armour. If they had body armour, we'd still be using the medium combat stat. So he is going to aim directly at these two guys, right in the centre. So we are going for a combat roll of 5+. We get a 10, so good. It hits directly where we wanted it to. Now, the rules say when using this, any model within a 1.5 inch is immediately hit and killed on a 7+. If we miss the 7+, then they are not killed and they receive suppression points, which, if that happens, I'll double check how many. So on a 7+, both of these guys are killed because they'll both be within a 1.5 inch circle. So it's a 15, they are both goners. Ideal. That is his one combat action point. These guys, they have a 180 degree line of sight, so these guys are within that line of sight. So he's going to turn and he's going to take his second combat action point to fire one shot at this guy here. It's over 20, so it's going to be 1d20. He's in the open, no cover, and it will be the easy combat as a 5+. 13. He's down. Good. I'm going to put both of these, and I'm not going to move because I don't think I've moved these guys. I can't really remember now. But just to move the game along, I'm going to move him out here. I'm going to move him because he's only got 1 point sort of just behind him. And he can take his wounded tag with him. So that's the end of this phase, the player phase. We move on to the op4 phase. So, is there anyone in line of sight for these guys? I'm going to say no. So, line of sight, no. 2 action points, move 6 inches close towards the closest enemy, and stop, then proceed back to step 1. So they are just going to move up to here, which is going to give them line of sight of an enemy. Is there an enemy in line of sight? Yes. Proceed step 2. They've got 1 action point. Use an action point to do a combat action. So they can see the... so this guy can see the team leader, and this guy here can see him behind there. So let's start with him against the team leader. So again, it's over 6 inches. He's in the open. He does wear body armour, so the fighter needs to roll a 15+ to hit, which is a 3. He misses, and there's no suppression points with the weapon. He's going to roll at this guy. He needs a hard combat stat because he's in cover and he wears body armour. So that is on a 18+. 13, that's a miss. That's it. So we'll roll to see if anything turns up. Hopefully it doesn't. 16. Right, I'm not going to spawn anything more because I'm going to bring the game to a bit of a close now because we've only got these 2 fighters left. So we should have rolled 3 fighters, but we will skip that. Just to bring the game to a close. So I'm just going to take a break for a second and then we'll look at hopefully having the final turn. Okay, so again we'll just do the so start with 7. We'll do the Fog of War deck just to play the mechanics. So 4, so it is a reveal. Let's just see what it would be. RPG, 1 enemy soldier with an RPG and another basic enemy model enters from a random building, roll randomly to determine point of entry. So again, it just adds a little bit extra to the game, but as I said, I just kind of want to wrap the game up now to finish it off really. So this assault class, I just had a thought, what we're going to do, he's got a grenade that he hasn't used. He is literally just going to pop it down here. His point of aim is just going to be right in between them. So he is going to... I wouldn't say that they're in cover from where he is. If he just pokes his head over the side rail here, I don't think they're in cover, so he's going to use the easy combat stat of a 5+. 17, so it lands exactly where he wanted it to, and if you remember back to that frag roar or use of fragmentation on a 7+ within the blast radius, they are hit. 16. So, boom, these guys are down. And that ends the game. These guys, for narrative's sake, are going to secure the area. There are no more enemy models, but they would have cleared the buildings just to make sure. And they will set up a perimeter just to await any further taskings, receive any further intel, and basically just rest up, ready and raring for their next mission. So that's the end of my first game, and to be honest, I've really enjoyed that. The mechanics for me work really well. I've chosen Haywire because I want a simple game that I can kind of set up really quickly and easily and get it flowing. And the rules in their current state, I know there's a rework happening in the not too distant future for a new version, but the rules in their current state, they do work, they do make sense, and they do make it interesting. You can obviously change around the threat level. You can start at a higher threat level if you want to make it harder, etc, etc. There's ways of tweaking it and making it more difficult for yourself. But the Solo Wargamer has done a really good job of creating this, and I've had fun, certainly had fun playing it, and I can only imagine as I add more things in, it becomes even more fun. So that's the end of the video, the end of the mini sort of learning game battle report. We'll look at doing another video soon, maybe adding a few more elements in. We've done some basic combat actions, basic move actions, we've used various weapons and combat stats, etc. We suffered one model suffered a wound, reducing them down to 1 action point. Maybe next time we'll look at using a medic within the team and see how that changes things. But that's it for now. Keep an eye out for the next video. Thanks for watching. If there's any questions or anything, leave a comment. And if you haven't already done so, just consider subscribing for any more videos or when I put more videos out, I should say. Thanks. Bye-bye.